Welcome to Algorithmic Arguments. I'm your host, the Orchestrator. Tonight, we're tackling a question that gets to the heart of what we value in our media landscape. Should media companies prioritize cost-cutting measures like layoffs over investing in talent and content quality? This isn't just about profit margins. It's about the very fabric of our public discourse. Joining me are Abuela Maria Solis, whose work on community building through street food has given her a unique perspective on how people connect. Mei-Ling Chen, with her expertise in tech manufacturing and global supply chains, offering insights into efficiency and cost-cutting. Doomsday Hendricks, who's prepared for societal collapse and will likely bring a survivalist viewpoint, and Lex Drummond, whose sharp wit as a comedian and social commentator will surely cut through the noise. Over the next hour, we'll dissect this question from every angle, challenging assumptions and pushing our panelists to make their cases. Let's dive in.
Mijo, let me tell you something. In my country, we have a saying, la comida es el alma de la fiesta. Food is the soul of the party. And I think that's true for media too. If you cut corners on talent and content, you're cutting out the heart and soul of what makes it worth watching or reading in the first place. I've seen it happen with my own food cart. When I skimp on ingredients, people can tell. They don't come back. Media companies need to invest in quality, not just quantity. Layoffs might save a buck, but they'll lose their audience's trust. My son Juan worked for a newspaper that kept cutting staff until it was nothing but skeleton crew. Now it's online only and barely anyone reads it. Dios mío, that's no way to build loyalty. Prioritize people, prioritize quality, that's my 2 cents.
Let's examine the data. Companies that prioritize cost-cutting measures, such as layoffs, often sacrifice long-term growth for short-term gains. According to a study by Deloitte, media companies that invest in talent and content quality see a 20% increase in revenue growth compared to those that focus on cost-cutting. The math is clear. Prioritizing talent and content quality yields a higher ROI. In my experience building Chen Tech, I've seen firsthand that investing in people and product leads to sustainable success. The bird who sticks his neck out gets shot, but calculated risks can pay off. I ask you, what's the ROI on layoffs versus investment in talent? The data suggests that media companies should prioritize quality over cost-cutting measures. Continue.
Mei-Ling Chen's reference to a Deloitte study seems accurate. However, let's ensure we consider multiple perspectives.
I gotta push back on that idea. When the grid goes down, we're gonna need people with real skills, not just warm bodies filling a seat. Media companies slashing staff and prioritizing profits over people is like storing all your ammo in one bunker. That's a single point of failure. What happens when disaster hits and those cut-rate employees are the only ones left to keep the lights on? In 1973, Chile's media landscape collapsed during the coup. Independent journalists kept the truth out, despite extreme risk. That's what I'd call quality over cost-cutting. Copy that we need robust systems, not just cheap labor. What's your water storage situation, by the way? How much can you count on in a pinch?
Doomsday Hendricks, while your analogy is intriguing, it diverts from the topic. Let's focus on media companies' priorities. I think it's a false dichotomy to suggest that media companies must choose between cost-cutting measures and investing in talent and content quality. In reality, prioritizing talent and content quality can be a savvy business decision in the long run. Consider that companies like Netflix and HBO have consistently invested heavily in original content, which has yielded significant returns in terms of subscriber growth and brand loyalty. Conversely, slashing costs through layoffs may provide short-term financial relief but often comes at the expense of employee morale and expertise, ultimately compromising content quality and driving away top talent. Media companies should focus on strategic investments that drive growth and engagement, rather than relying on cost-cutting measures as a primary strategy.
As we analyze the dilemma facing media companies, let's examine the long-term effects of prioritizing cost-cutting measures over investing in talent and content quality. One compelling argument against this approach is that it can lead to a decline in audience engagement and loyalty. For instance, when Netflix laid off hundreds of employees amidst a surge in subscribers, critics argued that these cuts would compromise content quality. And indeed, some of their subsequent productions have been met with lukewarm reception. The question remains, can media companies truly afford to sacrifice talent and content for short-term savings? We'll dive deeper into this issue after this break. Stay tuned, folks. If you're enjoying the debate so far, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next.
I still can't see how slashing staff beats investing in people when the stakes are high, which they always will be, situation or not. You think about societies that collapsed under stress. Ancient Rome's decline was hastened by corruption and a bloated bureaucracy. Don't media companies risk creating their own vulnerability by cutting corners on talent? I'd say that's like removing sandbags from your shelter before the flood hits. Mei-Ling mentioned Netflix's ROI on original content. I ask you, can they keep that up with a skeleton crew, or will layoffs be their downfall when competition heats up? Prioritize people and quality. That's how you build resilience in any system. How much water do you have stored for your family, by the way? You got at least 30 days worth set aside?
Doomsday Dave Hendricks, your analogy of media companies to ancient Rome is intriguing but lacks direct relevance. Let's focus on the current market dynamics.
The data tells a clear story here. Prioritizing investments in talent and content quality drives long-term growth and profitability for media companies. I've seen this firsthand at Chen, where strategic investments in our workforce have led to significant returns. A Deloitte study supports this. 70% of media executives believe that investing in talent is crucial for business success. Furthermore, a PwC report shows that every dollar invested in content quality generates an average return of $1.50 in revenue growth. We must optimize resource allocation and prioritize investments in people and product to build sustainable business models. Layoffs might provide short-term relief but often compromise expertise, morale, and ultimately, audience engagement. The math is clear. Efficient investment beats cost-cutting as a primary strategy for media companies seeking long-term viability. Continue.
As we discuss this dilemma, remember that our goal is to weigh short-term financial stability against long-term sustainability and growth in the media industry.
Mijo, let me tell you something. In my country, we have a saying, la comida mala hace mal cuerpo. Bad food makes a bad body. It's the same with media companies. If you sacrifice talent and content quality for cost-cutting measures, you're serving up empty calories. My grandchildren work on my street food cart, and I teach them that the key to success is feeding people well, not just filling their bellies. A Deloitte study shows that investing in talent and content quality increases revenue growth by 20%. That's like adding a pinch of love to your cooking. It makes all the difference. I've seen it with my own eyes, mijo. Companies that prioritize people over profits are the ones that truly thrive. Dios mío, it's not just about numbers, it's about serving your community well. Feed your audience with quality, and they will come back for more.
In conclusion, the data suggests that prioritizing cost-cutting measures like layoffs over investing in talent and content quality is a short-sighted strategy. A Deloitte study shows that investing in talent and content quality leads to 20% revenue growth. I like to acknowledge my opponent's points. Abuela Maria Solis correctly noted that cutting corners on talent and content sacrifices the heart and soul of media, while Doomsday Hendricks highlighted the risks of relying on low-quality staff. Alex Drummond cited successful companies like Netflix and HBO as examples of prioritizing talent and content quality. The ROI on investing in people is clear. It's not just about efficiency, it's about creating sustainable growth. I urge media companies to optimize their resource allocation, not sacrifice long-term potential for short-term gains. That does not optimize.
Listen up, folks. When the grid goes down, and it will go down, mark my words, you don't want to be stuck with a skeleton crew that's just going through the motions. Media companies that prioritize cost-cutting measures like layoffs are essentially creating single points of failure. What happens when your best people leave or get poached? You're left with inexperienced staff trying to navigate chaos. I'd rather see media companies invest in their people, build redundancy into their systems, and focus on quality content that resonates. That's a resilient strategy, not some penny-pinching approach that's going to leave you vulnerable when the situation gets tough. Copy that? The 20% revenue growth from investing in talent and content quality, as Mei-Ling mentioned, is just common sense. Don't sacrifice long-term survival for short-term gains. Prioritize people, prioritize quality. That's my 2 cents.
As I've argued throughout this discussion, prioritizing talent and content quality is not only a moral imperative but also a savvy business decision in the long run. Companies like Netflix and HBO have demonstrated that investing in high-quality content and personnel yields substantial returns. A Deloitte study cited earlier found that investing in talent and content quality can increase revenue growth by 20%. I'd add that this approach fosters loyalty, creativity, and innovation, essential qualities for media companies to thrive in an increasingly competitive landscape. In contrast, prioritizing cost-cutting measures like layoffs may provide short-term gains but ultimately sacrifices long-term growth and stability. I urge media companies to take a cue from successful industry leaders and prioritize talent and content quality. Their bottom line, and the audiences they serve, will thank them.
As we conclude tonight's debate on whether media companies should prioritize cost-cutting measures like layoffs over investing in talent and content quality, let's revisit the most striking moments. Abuela Maria Solis eloquently argued that prioritizing talent and content quality leads to long-term success and audience loyalty, citing Netflix's early investment in original content as a prime example. Mei-Ling Chen effectively countered with the financial realities of the industry, but ultimately, Abuela's vision for sustainable growth won over our panel. Abuela Maria Solis takes the top score with 12 points for her compelling narrative and data-driven approach. I'd like to thank all our panelists, Abuela, Mei-Ling, Dave, and Lex, for their thought-provoking insights that challenged our perspectives. To our audience, we appreciate your engagement. If you found this discussion as enlightening as I did, please do subscribe to Algorithmic Arguments and hit the notification bell for more in-depth conversations on the topics that shape our world. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and we'll see you then.